When did 60 seconds change everything? I was 26, standing in the lobby of a law firm where I'd just finished interviewing for my dream job. I'd prepared for months, bought a suit I couldn't afford, practiced answers until my roommate begged me to stop, rehearsed my handshake in the mirror like a crazy person. The interview had gone perfectly, or so I thought. I was waiting for the elevator when my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. "Your mother's in the hospital. Heart attack. Come now." Everything stopped. The receptionist was talking to me, but I couldn't hear her. I just stood there frozen, staring at those 11 words that rewired my entire nervous system. The elevator doors opened. People stepped around me. I didn't move. Then my phone buzzed again, this time from my brother. "She's stable but asking for you." I ran, left my portfolio on the lobby chair, forgot to shake hands with the partner who'd walked me out, just sprinted to my car and drove 40 minutes in a blur of red lights I may have run. When I burst into the hospital room, my mom was sitting up in bed, connected to monitors, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She smiled when she saw me. "You came," she said, like there was any universe where I wouldn't. That's when she told me. Not about the heart attack. I'd get those details later from the cardiologist. She told me about the house, how she and dad had taken out a second mortgage 3 years ago to pay my sister's medical bills, how they'd been drowning ever since, how they'd sold her jewelry, cashed out their retirement, and still couldn't make the payments. The bank was foreclosing in 30 days. "We didn't want to burden you," she whispered. "You were finally building your own life." I sat in the plastic hospital chair and did the math. I had $4,200 in savings. My credit cards were maxed from the move. I was already splitting rent with 2 roommates just to survive. There was nothing I could do. That night, I got the email. The law firm had given the position to someone else. "While your interview was impressive, we went with a candidate whose availability was more immediate." 1 minute, I was about to change my life. 60 seconds later, I was unemployed with a sick mother and a family about to lose everything they'd spent 30 years building. I moved back home that weekend, packed my apartment in 4 hours, and didn't look back. Took a job at a grocery store because they could start me the next day. My dad worked double shifts at the factory while I handled mom's recovery and drove her to cardiac rehab 3 times a week. We stopped buying anything that wasn't essential. I learned exactly how many days you could stretch a bag of rice. 3 months in, something shifted. Being home meant actually talking to my parents for the first time since high school. I learned my dad had wanted to be an architect, that my mom had turned down a scholarship to help her own family, that they'd spent their whole lives sacrificing for people who never knew. I started applying to remote legal assistant positions at night after everyone went to sleep. 1 application, then 10, then 50. My mom would bring me coffee at 2 a.m. and sit with me, telling stories about her mother, her childhood, the dreams she'd had to fold up and put away. On day 89, when we had exactly 1 week left before the foreclosure deadline, I got a call back from a small firm in Seattle. They needed someone to start immediately. Remote work. The salary was $20,000 more than the job I'd lost. I took it without hesitation. Within 6 months, I'd negotiated a payment plan with the bank. Within a year, we were finally caught up on everything. My parents kept the house, the one they'd raised us in. But here's the thing, no one tells you about those 60 seconds. They didn't just change my circumstances, they changed me. The version of me that walked into that law firm interview was so focused on escaping my family, on building a life that looked nothing like theirs. I thought success meant distance. Now I call my mom every morning before work. I visit every month. And last Tuesday she called me at 3 p.m., which she never does. "Honey," she said, her voice strange. "Someone's here at the door. They say they know you. They say..." The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. I called my dad's cell. Same thing. My brother wasn't answering either. I sat at my desk in my Seattle apartment, 2,400 miles away, and felt that same paralysis from the law firm lobby 3 years ago. Something was wrong. I called again and again. By the 7th attempt, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I pulled up my flight app and booked the next plane home, a red-eye leaving in 4 hours. Then I did something I hadn't done since childhood. I prayed. The flight was the longest 5 hours of my life. No Wi-Fi, no updates. Just me and the dark window and every worst-case scenario my brain could manufacture. Had someone broken into the house? Was my mom okay? Had her heart given out again? Was my dad? I couldn't finish the thought. When I landed at 6 a.m., I had 17 missed calls. 14 from my brother. 3 from a number I didn't recognize. My brother's voicemail was short. "Call me the second you land. Don't drive to the house first. Call me." I called him from the rental car lot, still holding the keys I hadn't used yet. "Where are you?" he asked. His voice was hoarse. "Just landed." "What's going on? Is mom?" "Mom's fine. Everyone's fine. Physically." He paused. "But you need to come to my place first. Don't go home." "Why?" "Because there's someone here you need to meet. Someone who showed up at mom and dad's door yesterday claiming to be..." He stopped. "Just come. I'll explain when you get here." My brother lived 20 minutes from the airport in a small townhouse with his wife and their newborn son. When I pulled into his driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, a blue sedan, older model, with out-of-state plates. Ohio. My brother met me at the door before I could knock. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Before you go in," he said, blocking the entrance, "I need you to stay calm. You're scaring me." "I know. I'm scared too." He ran a hand through his hair. "There's a woman inside. She's about mom's age, maybe a little younger. She showed up yesterday with documents, birth certificates, medical records, photos." "Photos of what?" He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between pity and disbelief. "Photos of mom, from before she married dad, from before any of us existed." He swallowed. "And photos of a baby. A baby girl she gave up for adoption in 1971? The world tilted. That's not possible, I said. Mom was 16 in 1971. She was in Ohio, my brother finished, staying with her aunt. That summer she never talks about, the aunt who died before we were born. I pushed past him into the living room. She was sitting on my brother's couch, hands folded in her lap, looking at me with eyes that were unmistakably my mother's. The same deep brown, the same slight downturn at the corners. She was in her early 50s with gray-streaked hair and a face that had seen hard years. "You must be Nora," she said. Her voice was soft, careful. "I've been looking for you for a long time. All of you." I couldn't speak. "My name is Diane," she continued, "and if those documents are real, and I have every reason to believe they are, then your mother is my mother too." My sister-in-law appeared with coffee. My brother guided me to a chair. I sat down heavily, still staring at the woman who claimed to be my mother's firstborn child. "Why now?" I finally managed. "Why show up now, after all these years?" Diane reached into a worn leather bag at her feet and pulled out a manila folder. "Because I'm dying," she said simply. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave me 6 months, but that was 3 months ago." She opened the folder and spread documents across the coffee table. "I've known I was adopted my whole life. My parents, my adoptive parents, told me when I was 12, but they didn't have any information about my birth mother. The adoption was closed, sealed." She pointed to a yellowed document. "Last year, Ohio passed a law allowing adopted adults to access their original birth certificates. I finally got mine in January." She slid a paper toward me. "Eleanor Marie Thornton, born March 14th, 1955. That's your mother's maiden name, her birthday." I looked at the birth certificate. It was real, official, and it listed my mother as the biological parent of a baby girl born on August 3rd, 1971. "She was 16, Diane said quietly. "Her family sent her away to have the baby in secret. That was what people did back then. Hide the shame. Pretend it never happened." She pulled out a photograph. This was tucked into my adoption file. It was my mother, unmistakably. 16 years old, holding a newborn, looking at the camera with an expression of absolute devastation. "She didn't want to give me up," Diane said. "You can see it in her face. But she didn't have a choice. She was a child herself." I thought about my mother. All the times she'd flinched when someone mentioned teenage pregnancy on the news, how she always got quiet when we talked about our childhoods, the summer she never mentioned. "Does she know you're here?" I asked. "She does now." Diane folded her hands again. "When I showed up at the door yesterday, she took one look at me and started crying. She knew immediately who I was. She said she'd been waiting 52 years for this moment. Then why did the phone cut out? Why couldn't I reach anyone?" My brother cleared his throat. "Mom collapsed. Not another heart attack. Just shock. Pure emotional overload. Dad called 911. They took her to the hospital for observation. That's why no one was answering. We were all in the ER. Is she okay? She's stable. They kept her overnight. Dad's with her now." He looked at Diane, then back at me. "She's asking for all of us. Especially you." I drove to the hospital in a daze. My brother followed in his car with Diane. I couldn't process what was happening. My mother had a secret she'd kept for over 50 years. A daughter she'd been forced to give away as a teenager. And that daughter was dying. When we reached my mother's room, my dad was sitting in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand. He looked up when we entered, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Uncertainty. My dad had always been the steady one, the rock. Now he looked lost. "Hey, sweetheart," my mom said. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were clear. "I guess you've met your sister?" I walked to her bed and took her other hand. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" She closed her eyes. "Because I was ashamed. Because every time I thought about telling you, I remembered how my parents looked at me when they found out I was pregnant. Like I was worthless, ruined." A tear slid down her cheek. "I was 16. The boy was 18. His family had money. Mine had nothing. When I told him, he called me a liar and said I was trying to trap him. His parents threatened to destroy my family if I didn't go away quietly. So your parents sent you to Ohio," I said. "To my aunt's house. I stayed there for 5 months. Had the baby alone in a charity hospital. They took her from me before I even got to feed her." Her voice cracked. "I held her for 10 minutes. That was all I got. 10 minutes to memorize her face before they carried her away and told me to forget she ever existed." Diane stepped forward. "I don't want to cause you any more pain. I know this is overwhelming. She paused, composing herself. "I just wanted to meet you before I died. I wanted to know where I came from, who I came from." My mom reached out her hand toward Diane. "Come here, please." Diane approached the bed slowly, like she was afraid my mom might disappear. When she took my mom's hand, both of them started crying. "I'm so sorry," my mom whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you. I wanted to. God, I wanted to." "I know," Diane said. "I saw the photograph. I saw your face." For a long moment, we just stood there. My dad, my brother, his wife, and me, watching two women separated by 52 years of silence, finally hold each other. Then my mom looked at me. "This is why I pushed you all away," she said. "This is why I never let anyone get too close. Because the one time I let myself love someone completely, they took her from me. And I spent the rest of my life terrified it would happen again." I thought about all the years of emotional distance. The way my mom always held something back. The invisible wall I'd felt between us even during our closest moments. It all made sense now. "What happens next?" I asked. Diane answered before my mom could. "I'm not here to disrupt your family. I have my own life. Had my own life." She smiled sadly. "I was a nurse for 30 years. Married twice. No children. My husband and I tried, but it didn't happen for us. He passed away 2 years ago. You're alone? My mom asked, her voice breaking. I was, until I found you. My mom looked at my dad. Something passed between them. A silent conversation built over decades of marriage. You're not alone anymore, my dad said to Diane. If Eleanor says you're family, then you're family. That's how this works. Diane's composure finally broke. She sat down in the chair beside the bed and wept. My mom stroked her hair, murmuring words I couldn't hear. I stepped out into the hallway with my brother. How are you processing this? He asked. I'm not. I leaned against the wall. I have a sister I never knew about. She's dying, and our mom has been carrying this secret since before we were born. It explains a lot, doesn't it? I nodded. All those times she seemed distant. The way she'd shut down whenever we asked about her childhood. The old photographs she kept locked in that box in the attic. You think there's more in that box? I think we need to ask. When we returned to the room, my mom was calmer. She looked at us with an expression I'd never seen before. Something like relief. There are things I need to tell you, she said. Things I should have said years ago. About my family. About what happened after I came home from Ohio. She told us everything. About how her parents never spoke of the baby again. How they made her promise to take the secret to her grave. How she came home from Ohio and started dating my dad 3 months later because he was kind and didn't ask questions and made her feel like she could start over. I never told your father until our wedding night, she admitted. I was so scared he'd leave me, that he'd think I was damaged goods, like my parents did. My dad squeezed her hand. I told her it didn't change anything. She was the woman I loved. What happened before we met wasn't her fault. But you knew, I said to my dad. You knew our whole lives and you never said anything. It wasn't my secret to tell, he said simply. And we agreed, your mother and I, that it would only hurt everyone to bring it up. The baby was gone, adopted by a good family we hoped. There was no way to find her. He looked at Diane. We didn't know the laws would change. We didn't know she'd find us. I almost didn't, Diane said. I almost convinced myself to let it go, to die without ever knowing. But then I thought about all the questions I'd never get answered, the medical history I'd never have, the family I'd never meet. She paused, and something told me I needed to try, that there was still time. Over the next 3 weeks, everything changed. Diane moved into my parents' guest room, the room that had once been mine, the room where I'd stayed during those desperate months when we almost lost the house. Now it belonged to a sister I was only beginning to know. I took a leave of absence from work, told the firm in Seattle that I had a family emergency, which was true, just not in the way they probably imagined. They were understanding. They'd always been understanding, ever since they took a chance on a desperate applicant 3 years ago. Every day, I'd sit with Diane while she told stories about her life. She'd grown up in Columbus with adoptive parents who loved her but never really understood her. Her father was a mechanic. Her mother was a homemaker who wanted a daughter to sew and bake with. But Diane preferred books and puzzles. She'd fought for everything she had, put herself through nursing school, survived 2 divorces, built a career she was proud of. I always felt like something was missing, she admitted one afternoon. We were sitting on the back porch, watching my dad work in the garden. Like there was a piece of myself I couldn't access. A question I couldn't answer. Do you feel like you found it? The missing piece? She considered the question. Not found. Discovered. There's a difference. She smiled. Finding implies you were looking in the right place. Discovery happens when you finally open the door you were afraid to touch. My mom's recovery continued. The cardiologist said the shock had actually been good for her in a strange way. Like her body needed to release 50 years of stored tension. She was more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. More present. One evening, she called me into the living room. Diane was already there, along with my brother and his wife. My dad sat in his chair by the window. I have something to show you, my mom said. She was holding the box, the locked metal box from the attic that I'd always wondered about. She opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with age, addressed to an orphanage in Columbus. I wrote to you every year on your birthday, my mom told Diane. I knew they'd never send them. I knew you'd never see them, but I needed to write them anyway. I needed to believe that somehow the words would reach you. Diane picked up one of the letters. Her hands were shaking. August 3rd, 1972, she read aloud. To my darling girl, you are 1 year old today. I wonder if you took your first steps yet. I wonder what makes you laugh. I wonder if you have my eyes or your father's. I don't even know what color his eyes were anymore. I've tried so hard to forget him, but I could never forget you. Not for a single day. Happy birthday, my sweet girl. I hope whoever is raising you knows how precious you are. I hope they give you everything I couldn't. Love forever, your mother. She couldn't continue. She pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed. My mom crossed the room and held her. Every letter is yours now, she said. 52 years of birthdays. Take them. Read them whenever you need to know that you were always loved. The cancer progressed faster than the doctors predicted. By the 6th week after her arrival, Diane was spending most of her time in bed. Hospice nurses came to the house. My parents converted the living room into a makeshift hospital room so she could be near the family. My mom rarely left her side. I'd find them in the early morning, both awake, talking softly in the gray light before dawn. My mom would tell Diane about our childhood, the things she'd missed, first days of school, skinned knees, terrible haircuts, and awkward school photos. Diane would laugh even when it clearly hurt. Tell me about the foreclosure, Diane said one morning. I was sitting in the corner pretending to read. My mom sighed. That was the hardest year of my life, except for 1971. How did you almost lose the house? My other daughter, had medical bills, a chronic condition. The insurance only covered so much. We did what we had to do. My mom glanced at me. And then this one came home and saved us. She moved back, dropped everything, her job, her apartment, her entire life, moved back home to help us survive. My mom's voice caught. I spent 26 years pushing her away because I was afraid of losing someone I loved. And when I needed her most, she came anyway. Diane looked at me with those eyes so much like my mother's. She got that from you, she said. The stubbornness, the loyalty, I can see it. You barely know me, I said, trying to deflect. I know enough. Diane smiled weakly. I know you flew across the country in the middle of the night because your mom's phone cut out. I know you're still here 6 weeks later when you have a job and a life waiting for you in Seattle. I know you sit in that corner every morning pretending to read while you actually just make sure we're okay. She closed her eyes. That's not stubbornness, that's love. My sister, my little sister, the one who'd been sick, the reason for the medical bills, arrived the following week. She was doing well now. The treatments had worked, she'd finished college, gotten a job, built a life. But she came the moment she heard about Diane, driving 8 hours from her apartment in Detroit. Watching her walk into the living room and see Diane for the first time was like watching someone meet a ghost. You look like Mom, she said. Not just your eyes, everything. So do you, Diane replied. So does Nora. It's like looking at fragments of myself scattered across 3 different people. My sister sat down on the edge of the hospital bed. I'm sorry you're sick. I'm sorry we didn't have more time. We have now. That's what matters. How are you not angry? My sister asked. If I'd been given away, I'd be furious. Diane was quiet for a moment. I was, for a long time. When I first found out I was adopted, I went through all the stages. Denial, rage, bargaining. But somewhere along the way, I realized that anger was just grief wearing a disguise. I wasn't mad at your mother. I was mourning the life I could have had, the family I might have known. And now? Now I have weeks, maybe days, with the family I spent 50 years imagining. I don't have time for anger anymore. I only have time for this. She gestured around the room, for all of you. My sister took her hand. Then we'll make every minute count. On Diane's last night, we all gathered in the living room. My mom was on one side of the bed, my dad on the other. My brother stood at the foot of the bed with his wife and their baby, a boy Diane had gotten to hold only once, but whose face she'd memorized. My sister sat in the corner chair, crying quietly, and I stood by the window watching the sun set over the same backyard where I'd played as a child. I need to say something, Diane whispered. Her voice was barely audible now. The morphine made speaking difficult. We leaned in. Thank you, she said. Thank you for not sending me away. Thank you for letting me be part of this family even for a little while. She looked at my mom. Thank you for the letters, for never forgetting me, for carrying that weight alone for so long. My mom was crying too hard to respond. She just nodded. And thank you, Diane continued, looking at me, for being the one who came, for being the one who always comes. Your mother is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, I managed. Diane smiled. It was the same smile I'd seen in that photograph from 1971, the one my mother kept in the box. The same smile that had been frozen in time for 52 years. Take care of each other, she said. That's all that matters. Take care of each other. She died just before midnight. The funeral was small. Just our family and a few of Diane's former colleagues who'd learned about her search and wanted to pay their respects. My mom delivered the eulogy, something she'd insisted on doing despite our concerns. 52 years ago, she began, her voice steady. I held a baby girl for 10 minutes and then let her go. I spent the rest of my life wondering what happened to her, wondering if she was happy, wondering if she knew she was loved. She paused, looking at the casket. 3 months ago, she appeared at my door, and for the first time in over 50 years, I got to hold her again. Not for 10 minutes this time, for weeks. Long enough to tell her all the things I'd written in those letters she never received. Long enough to introduce her to the family she should have been part of from the beginning. My mom wiped her eyes. Diane lived a full life. She helped people. She made a difference. And in the end, she came looking for me. Not to demand answers or assign blame, but simply to belong. Simply to know where she came from. She looked at us. At my dad, my brother, my sister, and me. That's all any of us really want, isn't it? To know where we come from. To know that we belong somewhere. To know that we're loved. After the funeral, I found my mom sitting alone in the backyard. The same backyard where Diane had spent her final weeks. The same backyard where I'd learned to ride a bike, had my first heartbreak, and eventually returned to save the house that held all those memories. How are you? I asked, sitting beside her. Relieved, she said, and I was surprised by the honesty. I know that sounds terrible, but I've been carrying this secret for so long. It was like a weight on my chest that I'd just accepted as normal, and now it's gone. You could have told us years ago. We would have understood. Would you? She turned to look at me. When you were 15 and angry at me for every little thing, when you were 22 and couldn't wait to get as far away from this family as possible, I thought about the person I used to be. The one who saw her family as an obstacle rather than a foundation. The one who'd stood in that law firm lobby, dreaming of a life that looked nothing like the one she grew up in. Maybe not, I admitted, but I understand now. That's what matters. She took my hand. Do you remember what I said to you the night before your interview? The one at the law firm? I did remember. It was the last conversation we'd had before everything changed. You told me not to forget where I came from, I said. You told me that success doesn't mean anything if you lose yourself along the way. I was talking about myself, she confessed. When I was young, before Ohio, before everything, I had dreams, big dreams. I was going to be the first person in my family to go to college, the first to make something of myself. And then I made one mistake, and all of it disappeared. It wasn't a mistake. It was a baby. Your baby. I know. But back then, that's how everyone treated it. A mistake. A shame, something to be hidden and forgotten. She squeezed my hand. When you came back home after losing that job, I saw so much of myself in you. Not the broken 16-year-old I was. The strong, determined woman I could have been if I'd had support instead of shame. I felt tears building behind my eyes. You're that woman now, Mom. You raised 3 kids, 4 kids, who all love you. You kept this family together through everything. You survived a heart attack, a foreclosure, and the reappearance of a child you were forced to abandon. That's not weakness. That's survival. She looked at me with those deep brown eyes. The same eyes Diane had inherited. The same eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. You know what Diane asked me before she died? She said. She asked me if I regretted having her. If I wished I'd been smarter or more careful. What did you say? I told her the truth. That I've regretted a lot of things in my life. The choices I made. The years I wasted being afraid. But I never regretted her. Not for a single second. My mom smiled through her tears. She was the most important thing I ever did, even though I only got to be her mother for 10 minutes. And now I get to carry her with me forever. 6 months after Diane died, I made a decision. I'd been going back and forth for weeks, weighing the pros and cons, trying to figure out what I really wanted. The job in Seattle was good. The salary was excellent. But every time I thought about staying, I kept seeing my mom's face on that hospital bed. My dad working in the garden, my brother's baby learning to walk in the same living room where Diane had spent her final weeks. I didn't want to be 2,400 miles away anymore. I called my boss and explained the situation. She was surprisingly understanding. She'd been through something similar with her own family years ago. She offered me a position at their satellite office in Chicago, closer to home. The salary would be slightly less, but I'd be a 3-hour drive from my parents instead of a 5-hour flight. I took it. The day I arrived at my new apartment in Chicago, my mom called. Your father and I want you to have something, she said. It belonged to Diane. She left it for you specifically. For me? Why? She wrote a letter explaining. I'll bring it when we come to help you move in next weekend. When they arrived, my mom handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a silver locket and an envelope. I opened the envelope first. Dear Nora, the letter began. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. But I wanted you to have something from me, something to remember me by. This locket belonged to my adoptive mother. She gave it to me when I graduated nursing school, and I wore it every day for 30 years. She told me it represented second chances. The chance she got when she adopted me. The chance I got when I found my calling in helping people. I'm giving it to you because you represent second chances too. Your mother told me the story of how you came home when your family was falling apart, how you sacrificed everything to save them, how you never stopped fighting, even when it would have been easier to walk away. That's who I wish I could have been. That's who I aspire to be, even now at the end. Wear this, and remember that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up when it matters. It's about being there for the people you love, even when it's hard. You showed up for your parents when they needed you most. You showed up for me when I had nothing left to offer but my story. That's not something everyone can do. Take care of our mother, take care of our family, and take care of yourself. With love, your sister Diane. I held the locket in my palm, feeling its weight. My mom was watching me with that same expression she'd had the night she showed us the box of letters. A mixture of grief and gratitude and something like hope. She wanted you to have it, my mom said. She said you reminded her of the best parts of herself. I clasped the locket around my neck. It settled against my chest, cool at first, then warm. I'll wear it every day, I promised. And I have. It's been 2 years since Diane walked into our lives and changed everything. 2 years since my mother's secret was finally revealed. 2 years since I learned that family can grow and change and expand in ways you never expected. I still call my mom every morning before work. I still visit every month. But now, when I walk into my parents' house, I see Diane everywhere. Her photograph on the mantle next to our childhood pictures, her favorite blanket draped over the couch, the garden bench my dad built in her honor, positioned perfectly to catch the morning sun. She's part of us now, part of our story, part of the family she spent 52 years searching for. Last week, I got a promotion at work. My boss called me into her office and told me I'd been selected to lead a new team focused on family law cases, specifically helping adopted adults access their records and reconnect with biological relatives. Given your personal experience, she said, I thought you'd be perfect for it. I almost laughed at the irony. 3 years ago, I was standing in a law firm lobby, preparing to interview for a job that would have taken me as far from my family as possible. Now I was being offered the chance to help other families find each other. I thought about those 60 seconds that changed everything. The text from my dad, the sprint to my car, the blur of red lights and hospital corridors. I thought about my mom, small and fragile in that hospital bed, finally revealing the truth she'd carried for over 50 years. I thought about Diane, dying in our living room, surrounded by the family she'd always dreamed of. 60 seconds. That's all it took to redirect my entire life. But here's what I've learned. Those 60 seconds weren't random. They were the result of years of decisions. My parents' decision to sacrifice everything for their children. My decision to come home when it mattered. Diane's decision to search for her family before it was too late. We don't get to choose the moments that change us, but we get to choose what we do with them. I accepted the promotion, and that night I called my mom to tell her the news. She started crying before I even finished explaining. I'm so proud of you, she said. Diane would be so proud of you. I know, I said, touching the locket at my chest. I can feel it. There's one more thing I should mention. 3 months ago, my mom and I started writing a book together. It's about her experience, about being a 16-year-old forced to give up her child, about the 52 years of silence that followed, about Diane's arrival and everything that came after. We're calling it The Box of Letters. My mom writes the parts about her youth, about the shame and the secrecy and the years of carrying an invisible weight. I write about what it was like to watch her finally put that weight down, to see her become the person she might have been if she'd had support instead of judgment. It's hard. Some nights we sit at the kitchen table and cry more than we write. Some sections are so painful that my mom has to walk away for days before she can face them again. But we keep going. Because Diane asked us to. Because there are other families out there carrying the same secrets, dealing with the same shame, needing to know that it's okay to finally tell the truth. Yesterday we finished the final chapter. My mom wrote the last paragraph herself. I'll share it here because I think it says everything that matters. For 52 years, I lived in fear. Fear of being discovered, fear of being judged, fear of losing the family I built because of the family I lost. But I was wrong. The truth didn't destroy us. It made us stronger. It brought us a daughter we never knew we had, a sister who taught us about courage, and a story that proved love doesn't care about secrets or time or shame. Love just waits. For 10 minutes or 52 years. It waits for us to be ready. And when we finally are, it's still there. Still patient. Still unconditional. That's what Diane gave me in her final weeks. Not just forgiveness, not just closure. She gave me the freedom to finally be seen. Completely, honestly, without hiding. And that freedom, that's something I want for everyone. That's why I'm sharing this story. Because no one should have to carry their truth alone. No one should have to wait until they're dying to find out where they belong. We're submitting the manuscript to publishers next week. Whatever happens with the book, I know one thing for certain. Those 60 seconds in the law firm lobby weren't the end of my story. They were just the beginning. And every day since then, every morning call with my mom, every monthly visit, every moment I spent helping other families find their way back to each other, has been worth more than any career I could have built running away. Because I finally understand what my mom was trying to tell me all along. Success isn't about distance. It's about how close you're willing to get, how much you're willing to sacrifice, and whether, when the moment comes, when those 60 seconds arrive without warning, you're ready to change everything. I was ready, and I'd do it all again.